This is part 2 of Introduction to Adobe Illustrator Vector Drawing, and we're going to move on to the other eye. So let me go ahead and zoom in here. And I'm actually going to drag select over this eye. I'm going to hit Control C on the keyboard, otherwise you have to come up to Edit and Copy. And we're going to create a new layer. And we're going to hit Control V for Paste, otherwise you have to go Edit, Paste. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here because this is going to be this eye on this side. Now I need to create the new base layer. In fact, I can click on this base layer and just hit delete because I'm not going to be using that one. And let's see here, probably could do, nope, I was going to select all of them and release all of them, but that's okay, I'll have to do it one by one. But first, let's create the base layer for this eye. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to go to my pen tool, and I'm also going to create a new layer for now. And let's start with maybe right about here. Let me turn off fill for now. And that looks good. So let me go ahead and reset the fill. So there's my base eye. This is also what I'm going to use for the mask. So let me create a new layer, actually a couple new layers. So with this selected, go up to Edit, Copy, or Control C, and go to your new layer and go Edit, Paste in Place, which is Shift Control V. All right, and we're going to do that Shift Control V a couple different times because we're going to need it a couple different times. So I think that's enough for right now. So I'm going to hide the base one, or let's hide all of these. I'm going to lock the base one actually, and then hide all these for now. Okay, so let's start with the pupil area. In fact, actually, I can just kind of work backwards this time. I'm going to take my, I got to zoom in here because it's not letting me just grab it. So let me go to my move tool, and it's trying to make me rotate it and all that, but I'm not after rotating it. I want to move it. And I'll put it over here. Now this eyepiece is getting clipped a little bit, so I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this highlight because I'll make a slightly different one. And let's go ahead, the next element down, or could be this piece right here, but I'm going to make that new too, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And let's grab this piece. This is the iris. Let's put it into place. Or the pupil, sorry, not the iris, but the pupil. And position it. That's looking good. Then I can grab this piece, position it as well. Now I can apply a clipping mask to this one. So let me go ahead and unhide one of the shapes above, and I'm going to hold down Shift, select the shape, so I have both selected, and I can right click and say make clipping mask. So now it's being clipped, and for some reason this is now in front of the pupil, so I'm going to right click and say arrange, send to back. Oh, that's right, it moved it to the above layer. So what we want to do is move this back down to the eye layer, and let's say right click, arrange, send to back. There we go. All right, so that works. So now we have the eye in place. Probably double click on it. It looks like it needs to move, not that much, just a little bit. That's fine. Okay, so again, I just double click on it to go inside of it. Now let's go ahead and grab this eye color. I'm going to right click and say release clipping mask. If you're not getting the right click release, you got to come up to edit, or sorry, object, and clipping mask release right here, or Alt Control 7. So right click, release clipping mask. I'm going to drag select over the clipping mask and delete it. And grab this guy, position it in here. I'm going to say arrange, send to back, and that probably doesn't make a difference because I'm about to apply the clipping mask to it. So let's go ahead and let me throw this layer away. So now I have this piece, and I'm going to hold down Shift to select both pieces, right click, and make clipping mask. And there we have it again. Now this piece needs to be dragged back down to the eye layer we're working on, which is this layer 9. And I'll right click on it and say arrange, send to back. There we go. And let's see here, last but not least is this piece right here. So I'm going to right click and say release clipping mask. And let me go ahead and just drag select over the clipping mask, delete, don't want it in the scene. And then I'll position this guy, let me zoom out here, where he needs to go. Probably something like that, and maybe scale down just a bit. Okay, and I need to do the clipping mask again to him, so let me go ahead and turn the clipping mask on, hold down Shift, select both of them, and right click and say make clipping mask. And then of course I will drag this down to the eye layer I'm working on, and I'll right click and say arrange, send to back. Now if I hit these little arrows here, you'll see the order that they're in, so you don't have to also right click, you can actually just drag them around inside the layer itself. So these are like sub layers, and you'll notice each sub layer has more sub layers. So that's I forgot to talk about that in part 1. Okay, so now that we have that done, both eyes are in set, I can actually grab this layer and put it below for now, and I'm going to delete all these up here. Don't need them. And I'm just going to go ahead and start collapsing things down. So let me go ahead and make this visible. Looks like, let me go ahead and hide these 2 layers real quick. It's a really dark area in here, so I might add some elements in here to darken it up, but we'll see. So anyway, I have these elements now. Let's go ahead and get them all into one layer. So let me click hide this top layer, grab the base, and I'm going to move it down to the base eye. Don't need this layer. And I'll grab this layer, make it visible, lock everything else so I can drag select over it, and then go back to unlocking the eye base, move it down. And now we have both eyes on the eye base. Those are all the layers, and I can delete this one for now. All right, so now I have both vector eyes in my scene, and I think I have a little bit of tweaking to do on this eye. Well, obviously I got to add the reflection elements. So let me hide that for now. Go ahead and create a new layer, and let's see here. I'll just do it with a pen tool and draw out this right here. Let me go ahead and turn off fill for now. And that's probably good. So let me add fill again, but this time it's going to be white. And then I'll draw this one right here. Okay, so with this one selected, I'm going to lower its transparency. And I'm going to drag select over both these elements. Actually, I'll just shift click on both of them, and I'll drag and drop them to the eye base. Turn this layer on, and there we have it. I can probably tweak this one a little bit more. Probably can even actually get rid of this point and use my anchor points to really shape this bubble look. Okay, so I have the vector eyes in place for right now, and probably tweak some of the gradient fall offs and whatnot for this particular eye, but as for right now, it's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and those are in place. Let's save the file. So File, Save. The next step I want to take is to draw out the eyelashes. Now I'm going to use custom eyelash brushes to do so, to make my life easier. So let me show you what brushes are first. I'm going to go to my pen tool and let me draw a simple stroke. In fact, let me just hit escape. That's my simple stroke. I'm going to go ahead and go to the fill, and I'm going to set to none. I don't have to. I'm just doing this to make it easier to see. Okay, so here's my stroke and here's my brush palette. If you're not seeing your brush palette, go over to Window and click on Brushes right here, or F5 on the keyboard. So if I click on these brush palettes with the stroke selected, you can see here I changed the look of the stroke. And because it is a stroke, it still can be moved and manipulated. I'm not stuck to the original design, which is really cool. And you can see here there's a few brush options that they have in the presets. Now this is the basic presets. If I want to find more brushes, I can click this icon here, go Open Brush Library, and click through these various different brush options. In fact, you can download brushes from the internet as well. So there's lots of options out there to create brushes for your work. I'm going to go ahead and go to my black arrow tool for now and delete this stroke. So now that you know what brushes are. Now this is the default settings for Illustrator. So if I close Illustrator and reopen it, no matter what happened in this palette, this would come back. So if I deleted all these would come back. If I added a bunch of brushes, those brushes would disappear, and this is what would only be seen. It's very important to remember that when you're creating brushes, because you have to save your brush presets before you close Illustrator, otherwise you'll lose them. So let's go ahead and create one eyelash right now, just a single eyelash to show you how this works. So I'm going to go over to the shape tool right here, the rectangular tool, and I'm going to click and hold it down and go to polygon tool. Now I'm not going to click and drag, I'm just going to left click, and that's going to pull up this window for options, and I'm going to type in 3 sides, click OK because I want a triangle. Now I'm going to use my black arrow tool. I'm going to rotate it holding down Shift 90 degrees so it points from left to right. And I'm going to go ahead and hold down Alt and grab the corner here and make it thinner and stretch it out. So let's say something like that. That's probably good. I'm going to switch the stroke to the fill, and I'm going to double click on the fill and set it to a straight black. Okay, so that's my initial eyelash design. Now, of course, if I was trying to do realistic eyelashes, I got to make them really thin and really play with this. But for right now, this is going to work. Now, remember, you can create as many different eyelash designs as you want. You're not stuck to just this one. So I'm going to take my white arrow tool and I'm going to zoom in here because I don't like the flat back end. So I'm going to go ahead and select these 2 points and choose round. And you can see here it made the whole thing round. So let me zoom out. Definitely don't want that. So let's grab this, hold down Shift and drag it straight down. Same thing with this one. Now I can probably bring a little bit out, give it a little bit of thickness at the base, something like that. I don't have to. In fact, I can make it thinner if I wanted to. It's all up to you. So let me go to the back end and let's go ahead and grab these points again. I'm going to hold down Alt this time and Shift so I can drag this straight back. And same thing with this one. Create a nice round back end. Now remember, just to show you this, if I double click the zoom icon, the eyelashes are going to be very small. So just keep that in mind when you're designing your brushes. So let me double click again. In fact, let me bring this out just a little bit more for this particular design. That should be good. Okay, so there's my first eyelash brush. Let's go ahead and convert it to a brush. So with it selected, I'm going to come over to my brush palette, and I can either click here and go New Brushes, or I need to click this icon right here, and that's going to create new brushes as well. I'm going to choose Art Brush. I'm going to click OK. And here's the presets. Now, don't panic because all these presets are very simple. I know at first it seems daunting, but also these are completely adjustable after the fact. So you're not set in stone with these options. So let's go ahead and call this Eyelash Brush 1. So Eyelash Brush 1, and it's a fixed width. I can choose pressure, stylus wheel, tilt, bearing, and rotation. I'm going to leave at fixed width. This right here is the overall scale. I'm going to leave that as well. And then I have options for brush scale options, set proportionate or scale proportionately or scale to fit. We'll play with these here in a sec. Direction, I made it from left to right, so I definitely want it going from left to right, but if you create it in another direction, you can change it. The color I'm going to leave is black, and the options I'm going to leave as well for the flipping and rotation. So everything else looks good. I'm just going to click OK. And you can see here, here's my new brush. Now I'm going to go ahead and create my brush library right off the bat so I don't lose it, just in case Illustrator decides to crash on me. So I'm going to go ahead and click this icon right here, this brush option, and I'm going to delete it. Let's see, remove, wait, let me hit cancel, and let me set this back to basic and deselect it, so that way it's not going to give me those options of applying to the strokes. So now I'm going to click it and hit delete, yes. Click it, delete, yes. I want to keep my eyelash brush. Again, these are not permanently being deleted. I'm actually just creating a library. Now I can't delete the basic brush, that's set in stone, but here's my eyelash brush. Now let me go ahead and save this. So let me click here, go down to Save Brush Library, and it's going to automatically save to the data location of Illustrator, which is fine if this is the only computer you're going to work on, because it will put it in the other brushes folder that you can automatically open up. However, if you plan on transferring this to other computers, it's probably a safe bet to put it in the folder that you're saving everything else. Unless you're running the newest version of Illustrator, then you can actually save it into the library's assets, and then you can share that library's asset with any other computer, which is a very nice function, but that's not something you can do in older versions. So we're going to stick with saving it where we can choose the location. So like I said, name it. Let's go brush library. Or sorry, eyelash brush. Let's go eyelash brushes. That's fine. So eyelash brushes, and I can choose, like I said, the location. I can go into my work drive, save it into my folder. For right now, I'm just going to save it right here. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and save it right here in my setup. But my suggestion for you is save it where you're saving all your other stuff for this particular project. So let me go ahead and click Save. And now this brush library is saved. I can come here if I ever changed my brush library or reopened the Illustrator. And I can go Open Brush Library. And because I saved it where it wanted to save it, put it in what we call the user-defined folder. And there's my eyelash brushes. Otherwise, if this would be grayed out. You're not going to see this highlighted because you saved it into your folder. You're going to click Other Library, and then you'll go ahead and go find that other library. So you probably saved it into your project file, Tutorials, Illustrator Vector Art, and you'd save it in here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Cancel. Okay, so we're doing pretty good now. We have our brush saved. I'm going to leave this brush. In fact, actually, I hope we didn't save this brush with a stroke. I'm pretty sure we didn't. But anyway, I'm going to move this off to the side just in case I need to make adjustments and make a new one or whatever. In fact, actually, I can just redraw one. I don't need this. I'm going to go ahead and go delete. And let me zoom in here. So a single eyelash allows me to, let me hide the eyebrows, the eyes, I'll lock it. So I'm only working with layer 9 right now. In fact, I'll call this eyelash, eyelashes, and click OK. So I can come in here with my pen tool. And I'm going to click, let's just do this one eyelash right here, sticking out by itself. I'm going to click the base, and I'm going to click the top point, and I'm going to come over to, I'm going to hit Escape, so it locks it in stone. And I'm going to flip, actually no, in this case I want the fill, sorry. I don't know why I was trying to flip it. So with this set, I'm just going to go ahead and click the eyelash. In fact, I don't want to fill, that's right, just the stroke. Okay, so there's my eyelash. You can see here it's way too thick, but it is a first brush that we created. So let's go ahead and play with the settings for this. So let me jump in here. Now, just right off the bat, I'm going to say scale proportionately, and I'm going to click OK. Now it's going to ask me, do I want to apply it to the existing strokes? And I'm going to say apply to stroke. And you can see here it dramatically changed. Now it's super, super thin, but it's kind of more of what I was going for. Now, if I was trying to do more of a realistic scenario, I could probably try to match these eyelashes one by one. I don't think that's going to give you really the vector art look that you're looking for when you're trying to do vector art style, but you can do that. You can draw out each one by one using this technique. Now, this is still a little too thin. To be honest, you probably, let me go ahead and zoom out to 100%, and let me hide the background layer. And let me click off the brush, and you can't even see it. That's how small it is. That's not going to work. So let's go ahead and zoom back in. And let's play with the settings. So I can double click it, and I can choose, let's say, 500% scale. And click OK. Apply to stroke. And now you can see more of the shape. So that's definitely a bit better. However, this isn't, well, no, that kind of works. There's no however about it. That definitely worked. But let me go ahead and go back in here and set this back to 100%. And let me choose stretch to fit. Click OK, the way we had it originally. And let me go back inside this, and let's try dropping this down to 50 or even 30%. Click OK, apply to stroke. and you're getting kind of the same result. All right, so that's kind of nice. Let me drop it down a little bit more. Let's go 10 or maybe even 15. There we go. So that's looking more like what we're after. Again, I could have designed the eyelash a little bit thicker instead of having to do all this, or a little bit thinner, depending on how you're using your settings. Anyway, so that's definitely one way of doing it. Now you can go through and literally draw out each individual eyelash as you see fit. Now my suggestion is when you click and drag and then hit escape, don't jump over here and immediately apply it, because you're just wasting time. I would actually literally just go through. Actually, I guess it kind of doesn't matter. It's just a quick click. But I like to just sit there and draw out a bunch. Just to see where I'm at. Something like that. And then I'll go ahead and select all of them and click on the brush. And it automatically applies. Okay, so however you want to do it. So that's one way of doing it. Let's go ahead and zoom back out real quick. I'm going to delete these options for right now, just so I can show you another way of doing the brush. So let's go ahead and go File, Save. The next step I'm going to show you is not really creating a new eyelash brush, but using the existing eyelash brush and another tool called Blend to fill in the eyelashes. So let me go ahead and zoom in here, and I'm going to go to my pen tool. I'm going to set my fill to none, and my black, I'm going to make sure it's set to black, or my border I should say is set to black. And I'm going to go ahead and start clicking in here, create the first eyelash, click and escape. Let me go to the next one, maybe somewhere here in the center, something like this, and escape, and let me do a final one over here for my final eyelash, something like that. And escape. So I have 3 eyelashes. Now I can create as many eyelashes in this area that I want. I can probably even come in here, maybe do something right here to bring this out a little bit. That's probably good. And then maybe even do something like right here, something like that. Okay, so I have a couple of eyelashes in here. I'm going to go ahead and select all of them and apply my eyelash brush. All right, and I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. Thickness is too thin, so let me bring this up to, let's say, 20. Apply to strokes. There we go. Okay, so that's a little bit better. And everything else is good, so let's use the blending tool now. So I'm going to go to this icon right here. In fact, let me make sure I deselect everything. I can hide the reference image for right now. So the blending tool, click. And now remember, when we created my eyelashes, I started from base to top, base to top, base to top every single time. And that's very important. So I'm going to click on the tip, and I'm going to click on the tip here, and I'm going to click on the tip here, and I'm going to click on the tip here. There we go. And click on the tip here. So you can see here, it adds eyelashes in between, which is very useful. Now what I could do is create various different blending options, so I can have various different short and tall eyelashes throughout this thing, or I can just keep fiddling with this one right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my white arrow tool, and the first thing I do want to kind of adjust is this. I might want to leave it. Let me unhide everything here. I can leave the hard snapping of this path right here. This is the path that's created when I created this blending tool. Now I do want to go to this layer and change the black to a blue, just to make it easier to read on top of the black eyelashes. So I could click each one of these points and make them smooth instead of making them hard, but I'm not going to work with that right now. I think I'm going to leave it with hard, and I'm going to come up to object, and it is selected. Let me actually use my black arrow tool to make sure everything's selected. And I'm going to come up to object and choose path, or sorry, not path, blend, and blending options. And when I do blending options, now I have, let's turn on preview, the ability to play with certain things like, let's say, orientation. I'm going to leave it at the current orientation. And I can go to smooth color specific steps. So I'm going to click in here, and let's say I do 25. And sometimes I have to click on something else to get the steps to activate. And you can see here now it fills in the eyelashes. 25 might be too much, so I can, let's say 15. Okay, so you can see here how it quickly fills in the blanks for us. And like I said, you can create a couple different patterns. You can use maybe do this one at 10. Let's see what that looks like. That's kind of nice. And then I'm going to click OK. And what I'm going to do is just create a new layer for right now. I'm going to hide my existing eyelash brush. Let me hide everything else, unhide the reference image, and maybe come in here and do something slightly different. So maybe this one right here, escape, and maybe something like this down here, escape, maybe something down here, escape, and then another option. Something like that. Something that's different. And let me go ahead and select all these paths that I just created. And let me add the stroke and also apply the actual eyelash brush. And let's go ahead and add the blending tool. Let me hide this so it's easy to select my elements. So blending tool, click on the ends. And let's go ahead and go, well, let's unhide everything else. Something like this. And let's go to Object, Blend, Blending Options, Steps. Let's go maybe 5 steps, see what that does. Preview. So you can see here it's filling in extra eyelashes and giving me a little bit more of a variety into the eyelash look. So I'm going to go ahead and hit, maybe do 10 steps in here. That's probably good. Click OK. Now you can see here some of it's falling off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my white arrow tool, click on the path. And I can bring it up a little bit. And this is where I can play with the handles as well. I can stretch these handles out. Oops. Click on this, grab this handle, something like that. So I'm not stuck with the hard look. I can adjust handles to kind of help form the eyelashes where I want them. Okay, so you can see it's creating a different look. I can push and move them around. More handles. Let's bring this maybe, oops. Let me lock this base layer so I'm not accidentally selecting it. That's why it's very important to use layers when working. It looks like I need to even make the bottom one a little bit more rounded to match this part of the eye. But you can see here it's creating a pretty cool effect. It's very easy. Let me go ahead and lock the top one. That way I can select the bottom one. Maybe apply a curve to this one. Pull it. Something like that. Maybe you can pull this out a little bit. Oops. Then relock it, go to the top one, and adjust this point right here. Okay, so if I zoom out, this is what I'm getting at 100% view. So that's pretty cool. And again, you do the bottom area and the other side as well. So that creates a very interesting look for the eyelashes. Now, that's doing blend tool. I showed you how to do individual eyelashes. Now, there is one more thing that I want to demonstrate when it comes to eyelashes, and that is, let me go ahead and delete these 2 layers for right now, because I'm not quite sure which style I'm really going to use. I like to play around with until I get a style that I really like with what I'm doing. So the last option for look, and why do I have, oh, I didn't apply a mask to my star effect for my eye, but I'll leave it for right now. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so if you go to the internet and you type in, I typed in, where's the top? Vector eyelashes. And you can see here there's lots of different styles. And I like to design something like this more for my eyelashes when I'm doing vector art. I think it looks a little more artsy, or I guess creative, than doing simple eyelashes the way we're doing them. And again, this is just something that you can actually pull this off online and trace it, and then put it on top of your eye, or use it as a reference in a second monitor, and design something that's very similar. And using the pen tool here, so it's nothing new. Let me pull this up. I'm gonna have to pull it off to the side. Sorry you can't see it, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of reference it. They do like a thin eyelash. Whoops. Click here. Let's just follow the eye contour for a little bit. Almost. It's going to actually overflow down here. And then it kind of gets thick this way. Oops. And then something like this. And they have some extra eyelashes coming off this way. Oops. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and go right back to the beginning. And it thins out, something like that. And of course, this one is going to be a fill. And so they're doing something more of a solid eyelash design. And like I said, I could spend a lot more time actually drawing out the eyelashes and not making it so quick, but I don't want to waste your guys' time. So I'm going to play with this. I'm going to pause the tutorial and kind of play with what kind of eyelash I want to go with. But basically I'm going to use one of the three techniques I just showed you, either drawing out solid eyelash or using the individual eyelashes from the reference image that we were doing. So either one works. It just depends on the style you're going for. I think the style I'm kind of leaning more towards is this type of look right here. Not quite this, but more like this. Anyway, yes, I'm going to pause it and I'll come back in whatever time it takes me to finish this. I finished the eyelashes off using the blend tool technique. I decided to go this direction instead of drawing them out just to save time for right now. Now, if I go ahead and unhide the base, you can see this is the end result. There's a few tweaks I need to do to the eyelashes, but overall it looks good. So I think I'm going to call it quits for this tutorial, this part of the tutorial, I should say. So this is part 2. I'll go ahead and move on to part 3, and what we're going to do is dive into the hair. All right, and that's why I'm actually stopping it now, because the hair is going to be a little bit more technical, making brushes again and all that. So go ahead and join me for part 3. And we'll start actually creating the hair for this vector art.